In this video, we're going to look at the probability of simple events. First, we want to know what is probability and its complement, and how do I determine the probability of a simple event? So first, let's talk about what probability is. Probability is the likelihood of an event happening. And it can be expressed as a number between 0 and 1, where 0 represents something that is impossible, and 1 represents something that is certain. A lot of times, probability is represented as a fraction. It can also be represented as a decimal or a percent. So something that you are certain is going to happen would have a 100% chance of occurring, or 1. Something like flipping a coin would have a 50-50 chance. That's how we say it a lot. Or there's a 50% chance of landing on heads and a 50% chance of landing on tails. And then something that's impossible, we would have a 0% chance of occurring. Typically, you're going to see probability represented as a fraction. So what is simple probability and its complement? Probability is the likelihood that an event will occur, and we can represent that as a ratio or a fraction that represents the number of successful outcomes as our numerator and the number of total possible outcomes as our denominator. Now, if that represents probability, then the complement is going to represent that event not happening. And so we would just represent the numerator with the number of unsuccessful outcomes and the denominator as the number of total outcomes as well. Now, you're going to represent the complement. You have to be really careful. The complement can be represented with that little apostrophe right there. So it's easy to miss. So you want to make sure that you're paying close attention when you see that. And the probability of an event and its complement always have a sum of 1. So either the event occurs or the event doesn't occur, and those two probabilities will have a sum of 1. So let's go ahead and talk about how you can find the probability of a simple event. The first thing I always like to do is to determine how many total possible outcomes there are. And then I look at how many outcomes would be considered successful. And then I'm going to set up a fraction and simplify. So looking at this table, we can see that there is a table representing a dozen donuts, and it has 3 different types of donuts. And down here at the bottom, we can see it's asking for the probability of a glazed donut. So the first thing I like to do is I like to find the total outcomes, and I'm going to go ahead and add that down here. And when I find the sum, I can see that there's 12 donuts. And so when I look at the probability of a glazed donut, I can see my total, or my denominator, is going to be 12, and my numerator is going to be 4. And probability, just like any other fraction, we're going to want to simplify that. And so I can simplify 4 out of 12 to be 1 out of 3. If I look at the probability of selecting an iced donut out of the dozen donuts, I still have 12 as my denominator. And then iced, I can see there are 6. So 6 out of 12, which can also be represented by 1/2. So I have a 50-50 chance of selecting an iced donut out of the other types of donuts. And then, or out of the total donuts, excuse me. And then this one right here, I can see this is saying the probability of not selecting a sprinkled donut. So because of that little apostrophe, it's referring to the complement. So I know my total outcomes, there's 12, but I'm looking for everything but sprinkled donuts. And so that would be 10. And I can represent that and simplify that to be 5, 6. So let's look at a few examples using other word problems. A bag contains a tile with the letters November as shown below. Cade randomly selects a letter. What is the probability that Cade selects a vowel? So again, we're always starting with the total. How many total letter tiles do I have? And I can see, if I count that up, that there is a total of 8 tiles. And then it specifically asks for the probability of selecting a vowel. So I can go through and I can shade the vowels. And so I know that the total possible outcomes is 8, and I count up and I can see that there are 3 out of 8 that are vowels, and so that would be the probability that Cade selects a vowel. In the next example, it says that there are 7 science fiction movies, 5 action movies, and 3 documentaries in a streaming platform. What is the probability of choosing a documentary? Well, first I'm going to look at my information. I have 7, 5, and 3 different types of movies. And so I'm going to find the sum of that, which will give me 15. So I know that's my total outcomes. And then I'm now finding the probability of a documentary. So I know my denominator is going to be 15. I go back to my problem. I can see that it's talking about 3 documentaries. And then again, I'm going to simplify that to be 1 out of 5, 1/5. Anything but an action movie. So I have my total of 15. I know action movies are 5. So that must mean science fiction and documentaries, 7 and 3. It's going to give me 10. So anything but action is going to be 10. And I can simplify that to be 2/3. And then the last one is the science fiction. And I can see that there are 7, and 7 out of 15 is already simplified because 7 is the prime number. Now, a lot of times we can actually apply probability to different types of questions, and we can do that by making a prediction. So in this example, it says that Joanna is going to spin the spinner shown 49 times. How many times can Joanna expect to spin a diamond? So first, we're going to look at our spinner. I'm going to count up the sections, and I can see that there are 7 sections. So my total possible outcome is 7. Now it wants to know specifically about diamonds. So I like to make, so I can have, here are my diamonds out of total. So I know that I'm going to have 3 out of 7. And that represents the probability that Joanna would spin a diamond. But that question actually wants to know if she spun the spinner 49 times, how many times would she do that? So just like the 7 represents the total number of outcomes, it's basically saying to predict if the total number of outcomes was 49. And so here we have 2 equal ratios or a proportion, and you can either solve it by cross multiplying and dividing, or I know that 7 times 7 is going to give me 49. So I'm actually scaling it. So I know that 3 times 7 is going to be equal to 21. So I know that we can expect her to spin a diamond 21 times. Okay, and then that's it. We talked about what probability is and what the complement is, and then we looked at how you can determine the probability of a simple event. So great job. You did it.